Portugal, Uruguay, round of 16. Cavani dominates the headlines. But what happened to Portugal? Why did they struggle here? How did they approach the game? And why couldn't they cope with Cavani and Suarez? Don't worry, here at the InnerViews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the InnerViews, we're going to break down how Uruguay beat Portugal. So Portugal, Uruguay, big game in the round of 16. Portugal, Euro 2016 champions. Uruguay, 2011 Copa America champions. Two sides cut from the same cloth, defensively organized, have great goal scorers, and a functional midfield. Something had to give. We expected it to be a cagey game, not too many goals. However, it was a bit different. We look at it, when we break it down, we got Uruguay in a 4-4-2 diamond, 4-3-1-2, whatever you want to call it. Suarez and Cavani up front, Bentancur just in behind them. In midfield, in the wider areas that are more narrow shuttlers, they had Vecino and Nandez and Torreira just ahead of the back four. We look at Portugal, 4-4-2, Ronaldo, Guedes up front. Out in wide areas, João Mario, Bernardo Silva in midfield, Adrian and William Carvalho. They also brought in Ricardo Pereira down at right back. When we break it all down, it is going to be a brief breakdown. This was the game that we expected it to be, especially with the early Uruguay goal. It led Portugal to have the initiative to break them down. But the main talking point here has to be Uruguay. They basically exploited the issues that Portugal have struggled with throughout this World Cup campaign. We look at their first game against Spain, conceding goals from direct plays, long balls into the box for Diego Costa. They conceded from a set piece. You look against Morocco, they struggled down the wide areas against Amrabat. Against Iran, long balls into Azmoun. They didn't really cope with it. Here, same thing. We break down the two goals, and when you really look at it, Uruguay breaking on the counterattack, and what it is it's Cavani basically picking up the ball in between the lines in transition, Suarez drifting out to the left flank, and we saw this a lot. Cavani and Suarez drifting out into the left flank because Vecino wasn't really occupying that space. So there was always space there for those strikers to really break into. What happens, he's then able to take on Ricardo Pereira. Cavani continues his run, gets in behind the fullback, Rafael Guerreiro, and he nods in a superb cross into the net. You look at the second goal that they can see, just a simple punt over the top, and it's Pep running into Suarez, overcommitting. The ball falls to Bentancur. Basically, it turns into 3v3. Pereira gets sucked in, slides it into Cavani. He curls his effort and past the keeper. Direct play, bypassing the midfield. When we look at this Portuguese side, they're great defensively in terms of sitting in deep banks of four, clogging space, ensuring that teams can't break them down. Here, like many teams have done throughout this tournament, brute one football, long direct balls, accuracy, and they exploited Portugal with quick attacks like that. Basically, how else is the fact that Suarez and Cavani if they don't get enough credit, this was another example to justify their claim to be the best strike duo in the tournament. So many good things about them. Suarez drops deep. They had problems coping with him, whether it be Font, whether it be Pep. One play in particular that really breaks it down, just simply dropping off, combining with Vecino, turning, breaking free on goal before he's taken down by Font. It then leads to a free kick that Rui Patricio makes a big save. But that's what we were getting from them. One would drop deep, one would spin out into the channels. A lot of the time it was Suarez, just great center forward work, holding off challenges, linking play, forcing the Portugal defense to foul him. Luis Suarez was key. When Cavani dropped deeper into midfield, it was Suarez playing off the last shoulder. It was Suarez moving into the left channel, trying to get on the ball. He did it all. It was an all-round performance. That was how Uruguay, in a nutshell, got at Portugal. Yes, there were some plays down the right-hand side where Caceres was eventually getting forward, combining with Nandez, but they didn't really force Patricio into any big saves. You look at the chances that Uruguay created, they were the 2 goals, a lot of them stemming from long balls into Suarez, holding up the play. Cavani and Suarez were superb in that regard, and you have to say that Portugal struggled to cope with them there. But a lot of this game stemmed with Portugal dominating possession, especially considering Uruguay scored the opening goal. So what we saw there, Uruguay dropping into 2 deep banks of 4. And what happened was that you have Ronaldo, you have Guedes, you have the wide players who actually started the game not too poorly. What was the biggest worry here was the fact that the fullbacks were getting so high, and it looked like at one point, especially with William and Adrian eventually breaking free, there were times where Suarez and Cavani kind of pinched a bit higher, and it looked like if there was any chance that Uruguay won possession, 2v2, balls punted onto the channels, Portugal would have been in deep trouble. But for large spells, specifically in the first half, we saw Cavani dropping off more so on Adrian. If not, they both sat goals in between Carvalho, but they didn't really disrupt them. There's only one real play where Cavani stepped in, or 2 real plays where Cavani stepped in, and then Suarez also pushed onto Adrian that nearly led to quality chances. But for the most part, we saw Cavani a lot of the time pushing onto Adrian, sometimes Bentancur stepping up to Carvalho, vice versa. They were taking turns, but they weren't really worried about that threat, because like we saw against Iran in the final game, for all that William Carvalho does without the ball in terms of winning possession, and he did a very good job. Whenever Uruguay tried to mount counterattacks, Carvalho was there to break up play, sweeping across the pitch to ensure that Portugal won back the ball. But whenever he was in possession, you know what you're going to get. Ball switched out languidly into the wide areas, not really being able to break into passes, into these spaces, penetrative passes. Portugal really lacked a player of that quality. You really see Tyrrell, who did a good job just sitting in between, breaking up play, winning loose balls. Portugal had a lot of joy down the wide areas, but Vecino did a good job. They tried to get overloads with Guedes breaking into the half spaces, Adrian moving into those spaces as well. They couldn't really get anything going there. Down the left, João Mario started the game well, but kind of faded throughout the first half. But look, when you see it, they couldn't penetrate through the middle, and that was pivotal. A lot of it was into wide areas, and Portugal weren't really getting and creating anything from that aspect. You look at the first half, perhaps the Font header, perhaps the João Mario cross to Bernardo Silva at the far post, but they didn't really cause any damage. Oh, there was also the Ronaldo loose ball shot that went right at Muslera, but besides that, they weren't getting anything going. Second half, they changed their system. Ronaldo stays up front, Guedes moves out wide, Bernardo Silva moves right in behind him. Still kind of the same thing that we're getting from them. Center back sitting there. What we saw from Bernardo was a bit different, dropping off into midfield to pick up the ball, making intelligent darts into the half spaces. When he picked it up deep and spread it wide, you would see him push it out wide and then charge into that space. He combined with Ricardo Pereira on a few occasions from that avenue. But when we look at it as a whole, the Portuguese goal came from a Pep header. And then when we look at the changes they made, they brought on Quaresma, they brought on Andre Silva. We saw Ronaldo on drift out to the left. Guedes moved to the left at one point prior to Andre Silva coming on, and when they were still a 4-2-3-1, he would cut in. Then you see Guerrero push a bit forward. Quaresma wasn't that great when he came on, although Laxalt gave him so much space to deliver crosses into the box. You have to say this Portuguese side lacked an identity throughout this tournament, weren't that great on the counterattack, and when they had possession and teams bunkered in, they didn't really look like they knew what to do with it. It was cross after cross after cross, lacking penetrative passers that could get on the ball and play passes between the lines, play balls in behind. Their best spell stemmed from Bernardo Silva getting a chance to play in that free role, moving from flank to flank, combining with the fullbacks, charging into half spaces. But apart from that, and a few near chances when they pushed bodies into the box, Portugal didn't look like they were going to score from open play. They struggled here in the sense that Uruguay exploited them with long balls over the top into their strikers. They struggled with Suarez in terms of playing him with his back to goal. Cavani It was very, very clinical around the box. And as a whole, this Uruguay side bunkered in, were organized defensively, and ensured that they were able to get over the line. Whereas for Portugal, in a tournament where they really lacked to impress, this could perhaps be their best performance in terms of territorial dominance, but just not enough chances created in open play. Ronaldo, even despite drifting out to the left and the right on occasions, couldn't get it going. Shot after shot blocked. He couldn't find open space and didn't get enough service, especially in the box when Godin and Jimenez won practically every aerial duel. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget, I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.